Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm your math mentor, and today we're going to be going over the first lesson of geometry, so that will include points, lines, and planes. So without further ado, let's begin with the lesson. Okay, so to start off, you need to know that a point has no dimension. A dot represents a point. So let me get you an example. So if I say this is A, then you could just say that this is point A. It's a dot, and that's basically it. That's all a point is. You can say over here, you can say that this is point B, and that's it. It has no dimension. And it's represented by a dot. And yeah, that's about it. 4 points. Okay, so for lines, you need to know that a line has one dimension and it is represented by an arrow on both sides. Additionally, it extends without end. So let me draw you an example. So if I get the line tool here, make a quick line right here. Okay, so first things first, you need to put 2 arrows at the end, right? And you can name the line with just 2 points. You only need 2 points on the line for you to be able to name it. So you could call this line right here, you could say line AB, or if it's just quicker, you can put it like this. So you put a line above with 2 arrows, right? You could call it line BA from right to left, or just BA with the arrow on top, with the line on top, sorry. Or sometimes it might already have a name, so maybe your question might say this is line L right here. So you can just put line L. Sorry, hold on. Okay, and yeah, that's about it for lines. Okay, so for planes, you need to know that a plane has 2 dimensions. It is a flat surface, like a floor, that extends in all directions. It's usually named with 1 letter by using 3 points. So let me give you an example. So if I make a small parallelogram here, right? I could name this right here plane M as an example, right? This could be named plane M, or it could be named with 3 points. They don't have to be on the same line. They could be on the same line. But let's say I have 3 points inside of the plane, so A, B, and C. You can say that this is plane A, B, C. And yeah, that's about it for planes. You could have lines inside. You could have lines inside of the planes, so maybe something like that. But yeah, other than that, there's nothing else for planes. All right, so here we have a question. I drew a small plane for you here. And the question says, give 2 other names for line PQ and plane R. So here we have, let's start with line PQ. So here we have line PQ. So P and Q is right here. So it's talking about this entire line right here. So what else could we name it? Well, we need 2 points to name a line. So we could also call it line QP. We could call it line QP. Or, well, this N is referring to this whole line. So we could also call it line N. Okay, so what about for plane R? Well, remember, to name a plane, you need either the letter, which refers to the whole plane, which we already have, or 3 points in the line on the plane. Sorry. So we have W here, we have T here, and we have P here. So we could call it plane WPT. You could also use maybe plane, you could say plane SPT. And there's probably more combinations, but just know that you need three three lines, 3 points, sorry, to name a plane. Okay, so for this next question, it says, name 3 points that are collinear and coplanar. So what does it mean if 3 points are collinear? It means that they lie on the same line. So 2 points that are collinear, you could say, well, in this line you have 3 points right here. You have SPT. They all lie on the same line. So 3 points that are collinear are S, P, and T. Alright, so what about 3 points that are coplanar? Well, coplanar means that they lie on the same plane. So 2 points that are 3 points that are coplanar, you could say W, well, W is in the plane, T is in the plane, and so is S. So you could say W, T, and S. And that's about it for this question. Alright, so I'm going to introduce you to a couple of other things as well. So to start off, we're going to start with segments. So a segment is a part of a line with two endpoints. It doesn't go on forever, and it has a starting and an ending point. So let me draw you an example. So if I have a line here, right? So we need one point here at the end, one endpoint, and then another endpoint here. We could call this point A, we could call this point B. So remember, the difference here is that a line has arrows at the end, which mean that signify that the line goes on forever to the left and to the right. This time it has endpoints, so it doesn't go on forever, as a starting point and an ending point. What can you call this segment? Well, you could call this with 2 points. You could name it with 2 points. So you could call this segment AB, or just AB with a line on top without the arrows at the end. Or you could call this segment BA from right to left. Just BA like this. And yeah, that's about it for segments. Okay, so the next thing is array. So array has one endpoint and extends forever in one direction. So let me give you an example. So let's say I make this right here. Okay, so it has one endpoint. So if I make one endpoint here, and I'll call this point A, and it extends forever in one direction. So we can put an arrow here, and we can put another point here. We can call this point B. So right here you have ray AB. You have to start. You always have to start it with the endpoint. So this is AB. So this would be ray AB, or AB. You put a line and then an arrow to one direction. Now, what are opposite rays, right? Let me just put that up here. Opposite rays. So opposite rays, I'm gonna make a line right here. Basically, let's say we have one starting point here, like one end point, and then we can have another one here and another one here. So if I put A, B, C, well, opposite rays have the same starting point or the same end point, and they form a line. So you can put ray CA starting from C and then A. So ray CA and ray CB. Oops, I'm sorry. Form opposite rays. They form opposite rays because they have the same endpoint and they form a line. They share the same endpoint. And yeah, that about wraps it up for rays and opposite rays. Okay, so let's begin with the questions. So here I drew two lines, right? And that they intersect at point, well, not point, they intersect at J. By the way, just remember this as the point of intersection because that's where these two lines intersect, that's where they meet. So the first question says, give another name for segment GH. So segment GH. Well, remember the segment only includes from this endpoint to this one. What else could you call it? Well, you could just call it segment HG. You could call this segment, oops, HG. And yeah, that's about it for this question. Okay, so here we have the second question. It says, name all rays with endpoint J. Which of these rays are opposite rays? Oops, I forgot to put a question mark here. So name all the rays with endpoint J. Well, remember, we have to, when we name the rays, we have to start it with the endpoint to to the to the arrow. So let's look at the first one. Well, J, we can say ray J E. So ray J E. You could also say ray J G. Ray J G. You could also say ray J F. Ray J F. Or lastly, you could say ray J H. All right, well, the second part of the question says, which of these rays are opposite rays? Now remember, opposite rays share the same endpoint and they're on the same line. So if you look over here on line EF, here we have the endpoint J. We could say ray JE and JF are opposite rays because they lie on the same line and they also share the same endpoint. So you could say ray JE and JF are opposite rays. And you could also say, well, JG and JH, they lie on the same line and share the same endpoint, so they must be opposite rays. So JG and JH. Rays JG and JH are opposite rays. And that about wraps it up for the second question. Okay, so to review for the entire lesson, remember that points are represented by a dot and they have no dimension. So it's really just a dot and then a letter, a capital letter. That's point A. For lines, you have a line with two arrows at the end, which means it extends with no limit. And you could call this line AB or line BA. For planes, well, planes have two dimensions and they could be named with the letter, or I forgot to add this, with 3 points inside. So this could also be named plane ABC. Line segments are similar to lines, but they have two endpoints, and so they don't extend forever. You could call this line, you can call this segment AB or segment BA. For rays, they have one endpoint and one arrow, so it extends forever to one side. And you could just call this ray AB. And finally, for opposite rays, they have to be on the same line and share the same endpoint. So in this case, the opposite rays are CA and CB. And that wraps it up for the review. Alright, that about wraps it up for the lesson. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe so I can keep uploading content like this. If you have any questions about the video or any questions in general, make sure to comment them down below and I'll try to answer them. And if you have any other topics or anything else you want me to cover, then comment them down below too and I'll see if I can cover them. And yeah, that's about it.